Have you ever noticed that the more desperately you try to hold on to something, the more it slips through your fingers, like trying to grasp water? The tighter you squeeze, the less you have. That's not a coincidence, you see. That's the universe trying to tell you something rather important. You know, it's quite amusing how seriously we take ourselves. Here we are, on a tiny speck of dust, whirling around a mediocre star in one of billions of galaxies, and yet we believe we can control things.
So it is the prayer mayors that we're splitting ourselves into two parts. There's the me who feels anxious, scared, and worried. Then there's the me who keeps trying to get rid of those bad feelings, to push them down, to beat them. It's as if we could somehow reach into our brains with invisible tweezers and pull out the feelings we don't want. But what would happen if you stopped this inner war? What takes place in that gap between the person fighting and the person being fought? I've noticed something pretty amazing. When you stop struggling against anxiety, not by quitting in sadness, but by truly not resisting, something unexpected takes place. It's like when you're swimming in the sea and a big wave comes toward you. If you battle against it, you'll probably get tossed around and confused. But if you dive straight through it, well, that's the trick. The anxious feeling doesn't always go away. No, that would be too easy an answer. Instead, you find out that you and the anxiety aren't two different things after all. There isn't you on one side and anxiety on the other side. There's just this current moment holding all kinds of feelings, thoughts, and sensations. Some feel good, some feel bad. All are temporary, all are moving. It's kind of like watching clouds float across the sky. You are the sky itself, not the clouds. The clouds, your worried thoughts, pass through you. They're not who you are, but they're also not separate from you. They're what you're experiencing right now. Just as the sky makes clouds, you are making anxiety. And the second you understand this, something changes. Not because you've beaten anxiety, but because you've stopped creating the false idea that there was ever anyone separate from it who could beat it.
Here's where things get really interesting. We're stuck in an amazing puzzle. You see, the more we try to control our thoughts and our lives, the less control we actually have. Isn't that weird? Think about this. You decide you absolutely have to fall asleep right this second. You push and you try, ordering your body to sleep. And what happens? You lie there wide awake, feeling more restless than you did before. The harder you try to force sleep, the more it escapes you. Anxiety works the same exact way. The tighter you hold it, the more it slips away. The more you demand, I cannot be anxious, the stronger the anxiety becomes. It's like someone telling you, whatever you do, don't picture a pink elephant. What's the first image that appears in your mind? So we find ourselves doing this dance, this strange waltz between trying to control and letting go. And society tells us only one half of this dance is important. Control everything. Take charge. Master what you feel. Beat your fears. It's all so much like fighting a battle, isn't it? As if we're always at war with our own selves. But what if real mastery isn't about controlling things at all? What if it's about understanding when to grip tight and when to release? Like a good sailor who knows sometimes you change the sails and other times you just let the wind carry you. Anxiety grows when we fight against what's happening, when we say this shouldn't be occurring or I shouldn't feel like this. But what if, just as a test, we attempted something different? Not giving up, that's just another way of fighting. But real acceptance. Here is anxiety, here it is exactly as it is, and in that moment of acceptance, we might find something quite special, that we can move with anxiety instead of wrestling it. We can hold it gently with interest instead of fear. Oh, hello there, what are you doing today? You see, the puzzle solves itself when we understand there was never anything to control from the start. You know, I find it totally fascinating how the mind builds its own haunted house and then gets scared to walk through it. We are, every single one of us, the most incredible storytellers. Think about what happens when you feel that first flutter of anxiety. Maybe it's a small tightness in your chest or your breathing speeds up a little. A simple feeling, nothing more. But then the mind starts working. It says, oh no, this feeling means something bad is happening. This feeling is unsafe. That's how the story begins. The mind jumps forward. What if this gets even worse? What if I can't deal with it? What if I'm losing my grip? And backward. This is exactly like that awful time in the past. I'm falling into the same hole again. And suddenly that simple flutter has turned into a complete story of coming disaster. It's like seeing a rope lying on the ground in dim lighting and thinking it's a snake. The fear feels real. The pounding heart feels real. The sweaty hands feel real. But the snake was never actually there. Our thoughts aren't facts, you see, even though they pretend to be. They dress up in the outfit of truth and walk around with so much confidence. This is absolutely happening, they claim. This terrible future is guaranteed, and we believe them. Isn't that incredible? We trust these ghost predictions as if they were reporting the weather forecast. But here's the secret that anxiety doesn't want you to discover. These thoughts are simply thoughts. These stories are only stories. They have no real substance beyond the attention you feed them. They're like shadows cast on a wall, looking solid until you turn on the lights. The mind makes these ghosts and then runs away from them. But have you ever tried turning around to look at a ghost? Not to battle it, not to make it disappear, but just to look at it with clear eyes. It's the most interesting thing. When you really look closely, there's often nothing there at all. Picture yourself sitting beside a rushing river, the river of your thoughts and emotions. When anxiety shows up, it's as if the river is moving extra fast, maybe even spilling over its edges. The normal reaction is to try to block the river, to stop its movement, to control the flow. But have you ever attempted to hold back a river? It's tiring work and impossible in the end. The water always discovers a way through, around, or over your carefully built walls. What if instead of trying to control the river, you just watched it? Not from a place of worry or resistance, but from a place of curious attention. Oh, look at how the water flows today. See how it swirls and foams over there. Notice how fast the current moves. You see, anxiety is similar to this river. It flows through you, sometimes softly, sometimes with powerful force. But you are not just the river, you are also the riverbed that contains it, the shores that shape it, and the huge sky that reflects in its surface. The problem starts when we identify only with the rushing water. I am anxious, we say. Not there is anxiety flowing through me right now, but I am anxious, as if this passing state were your whole identity. But here's where it becomes interesting. The shores of the river, the edges that seem to divide you from the world, that seem to mark where you stop and everything else starts. These two are somewhat of an illusion, because the riverbed gets shaped by the water, just as the water gets directed by the riverbed. They aren't two separate things really, but parts of one single process. And when you see this, truly see it, something shifts. The anxiety doesn't always vanish, but how you relate to it transforms. You're no longer stuck in the rushing current, frantically looking for solid ground. You recognize that you are both the movement and the one who watches the movement, and in that recognition lies a freedom that no amount of controlling could ever give you. Have you ever noticed that the more desperately you try to hold on to something, the more it slips through your fingers, like trying to grasp water? The tighter you squeeze, the less you have. Have you notice how anxiety is almost never about right now? It's the strangest thing. Anxiety exists in a world that doesn't really exist. The imagined future or the remembered past. What if I mess up tomorrow? What if they turn me down next week? What if that horrible thing from before happens again? It's all about time, right? Time that isn't happening now. Time that exists only in our minds. And yet, where are you? Where have you ever been except now? You've never lived through anything except this present moment. The past exists only as memories appearing now. The future exists only as worries appearing now. Your whole life happens in an endless chain of present moments. So anxiety builds this incredible prison, made of time, a jail cell constructed from minutes and hours that haven't arrived and might never arrive. And we walk back and forth in this imaginary cell, feeling trapped by walls that aren't really there. But what happens when you step completely into this moment? Not as an escape from anxiety, not as a trick or a method, but as recognizing what's already true. You're already here. You've always been here. Only here. Feel how heavy your body is. Notice the feeling of breathing. Hear the sounds that surround you. This moment, exactly as it is, holds everything. And interestingly, it holds enough room for anxiety too if it shows up. There's space for it all in the bigness of now. You see, time is a helpful fiction, a convenient tool to organize our experiences. But it's not a reality that can trap you unless you think that it can. The moment you see through this trick, the prison disappears. Not because you've escaped from time, but because you realize there was never anything to escape from. The present moment isn't a hiding place from anxiety. It's simply where life actually occurs. And life, real life, not the story about life, has this incredible quality of being spacious, of being open. There's room to breathe here, room to exist. Isn't it interesting how much of our anxiety comes from this strange idea that we should be perfect, or if not perfect, at least better than we are? Always better, never quite good enough. We create these impossible standards for ourselves, standards we would never think of putting on anyone else. I should always stay calm. I should always be productive. I should never mess up. I should have everything figured out by this point. And then we're shocked when anxiety follows. It's like planting apple seeds and then being surprised when apple trees start growing. Of course they do. That's what you planted. So what happens if we pull up this whole garden? What if we simply stop trying to be perfect? Not as giving up, not as quitting, but as a real understanding that perfection was never the goal of being human anyway. Look at the natural world. Does a tree work hard to be the perfect tree? Does a mountain struggle to be the ideal mountain? Of course not. They simply are what they are. The tree grows based on what's around it. Sometimes it grows straight, sometimes it grows twisted, always reacting to where it lives. The mountain stands as it was made, worn down, carved away, beautiful in its own special way. What if you gave yourself the same freedom to be as you are, to grow based on what's around you, to react to life not from some perfect image of how you should be, but from the truth of who you really are in this moment? I think you might find something pretty freeing. When you stop chasing the perfect version of yourself that only exists in your head, you might just discover the real self that's been here the whole time. And this self, this beautifully imperfect, wonderfully human self, has qualities that perfection could never have. The ability to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to be surprised, to learn and grow. And most amazingly, you might discover, without the constant pressure of trying to be what you're not, anxiety starts to lose its power. Not because you've defeated it, but because you've stopped creating the situations that feed it. What's left when we give up the quest for perfection? Nothing less than our whole messy, magnificent humanity. What if anxiety isn't just a problem to be suffered through or gotten rid of? What if it's actually a message, a signal, maybe even an invitation? You see, we've been taught to see anxiety as the enemy, a malfunction to be fixed, a flaw to be conquered. But I wonder if we've been seeing it all wrong. After all, anxiety is a part of you talking to you. And isn't it kind of strange to fight a war against a part of yourself? Consider this idea. Anxiety might be pointing to something valuable. It might be saying, look here, pay attention. Something really matters to you in this area. When you feel anxious about a relationship, maybe that's because connection is important to you. When you feel anxious about your job, maybe that's because meaning and making a difference are important to you. When you feel anxious about tomorrow, maybe that's because living fully is important to you. Anxiety often appears around the things we care about most deeply. It's rarely there in parts of life where we don't care. Isn't that interesting? The very fact that anxiety is present might be a hint about what you value. Of course, anxiety usually shows up wearing a pretty scary costume. It arrives as terrible thoughts, unpleasant body feelings, a sense that something bad is coming. No wonder we look away. But what if we look past the costume to what's underneath? There's a huge difference between being controlled by anxiety and being informed by it. When we're controlled by it, we just react. We run away, we fight back, we freeze up. But when we're informed by it, we can respond with wisdom and good judgment. Ah, I see you're trying to tell me something. What is it that matters so much here? What are you pointing toward? And this way, anxiety becomes not a wall blocking us from living, but a doorway to deeper knowledge. Not a prison that limits us, but a messenger that, when properly listened to, might actually lead us toward greater freedom and realness. Isn't it amazing how the very thing we've been fighting against might actually be trying to help us the whole time? Have you ever sat with anxiety without doing anything about it? Without studying it, without trying to fix it, without even calling it anxiety? Just being with the raw feelings as they are? It's an unusual approach in our problem-solving world. We're so used to doing something about our uncomfortable feelings, distract ourselves, take medicine for them, talk them through, exercise them away, anything but just be with them. Yet there's a deep power in the simple act of watching, of creating a space of quiet around the noise of anxiety. Not to make it smaller or make it go away, but to meet it with a quality of attention that anxiety rarely gets. You see, anxiety feeds on words. The internal story, the terrible predictions, the endless overthinking. What if this happens? What if that happens? What does this mean? Why can't I stop feeling this way? It's an exhausting conversation that feeds itself. But silence works on a completely different level. Not the tense silence of holding back where you're desperately trying not to think anxious thoughts. That's just another form of fighting. I'm talking about open, roomy silence. The silence of simple awareness. In this silence, you might notice something quite extraordinary. Beneath the mental noise of anxiety, beneath the physical feelings, there's a deeper part of your being that stays untouched by it all. Call it awareness, consciousness, the watching presence. The name doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's always here, always peaceful, always calm. This isn't something you need to create or earn. It's what you already are beneath the temporary weather of thoughts and emotions. And when you rest as this, even for just a moment, anxiety gets put in a new light. It's still there perhaps, but it's no longer all that exists. It's just one part of a much bigger sky. In the silence, beyond words, beyond strategies, beyond the constant doing, you might just find what anxiety has been distracting you from all along. The natural peace at the center of your being that no amount of mental chaos can actually disturb. There's an interesting relationship between anxiety and emptiness. Have you noticed? Often what we're most scared of isn't some specific disaster, but a kind of nothingness. The feeling that beneath all our doing and achieving and becoming, there might be nothing there. This fear of emptiness pushes so much of our frantic activity. We stay busy. We look for constant entertainment. We fill every moment with stuff, all to avoid facing this apparent black hole. And when we can't distract ourselves, anxiety rises like smoke from this unexamined fear. But here's the fascinating thing. This emptiness we're so afraid of is not what we think it is. It's not a dead wasteland or a black hole that will swallow us up. That's just another story the mind creates, another wrong identification. The emptiness at our center is not an absence, but a fullness beyond shape. Not a lack, but an endless possibility. It's the blank canvas that allows for every painting, the silence that makes all music possible, the space that lets all objects exist. When we dare to face this emptiness instead of running from it, something remarkable happens. We discover it's not empty in the way we feared. It's empty only of limitation, empty of boundaries, empty of all the restrictions we've put upon ourselves. This is not just philosophy or abstract thinking, it's an invitation to direct experience. Right now, as you listen, can you sense the awareness in which all your experiences appear? This awareness isn't a thing among other things. It has no shape, no edge, no center, no outer limit. And yet it's clearly here, the very foundation of your being. Embracing this emptiness doesn't mean vanishing or losing yourself. Quite the opposite. It means discovering your true nature beyond all the limited identities you've collected. It means finding the source from which all your experiences, including anxiety, come from and return to. And strangely enough, when you no longer run from emptiness but recognize it as the very fabric of who you are, anxiety loses much of its hold. Not because you've conquered it, but because you've discovered something far more basic than any temporary state of mind. You embrace the void by recognizing that you are the void. And far from being something to fear, this is the most freeing discovery possible. We tend to think of peace as the absence of disturbance. No anxiety, no conflict, no problems, just smooth sailing on a calm sea. And so we work toward this state, pushing away anything that threatens to disturb our carefully created calm. But I wonder if true peace is something completely different. Not the absence of storms, but the ability to be at ease within them. Not the removal of difficulties, but a fundamental okayness that continues regardless of what's happening. After all, have you ever achieved lasting peace through resistance? Has fighting against anxiety ever led to it permanently going away? Or does the very act of struggling against what is actually create more disturbance, more conflict? Perhaps peace isn't something to be reached, but something to be recognized. A dimension of being that's already here, already available beneath the surface chaos of our lives. Think of the ocean. On the surface, there may be huge waves, violent storms, constant movement. But dive deep enough, and you reach a place of deep stillness. Both realities exist at the same time, the turbulence and the calm. They're not opposite to each other. They're aspects of the same vast ocean. You are like this ocean. The anxious thoughts, the worried feelings, these are the surface waves. Real certainly, but not the whole of who you are. Beneath these movements lies a deeper current of being untroubled, spacious, naturally at peace. This peace isn't fragile. It doesn't need to be protected or defended. It can't be disturbed by circumstances, because it's not dependent on circumstances. It's the very nature of consciousness itself. And here's the wonderful puzzle. When you stop seeking peace as a future state to be reached, and recognize it as the ever-present ground of your being, even anxiety can be embraced within this larger field of acceptance. Not because you want anxiety or enjoy it, but because in this embrace, you're no longer divided against yourself. The fight ends not when anxiety disappears, but when the fighter does. When you recognize that you are not merely the anxious self, but the awareness in which anxiety, like all experiences, comes and goes. And in this recognition, You discover a peace that passes understanding, not because it's mystical or mysterious, but because it's too simple, too obvious, too close to be grabbed by the thinking mind. It's what you already are. After everything is said and done, this whole business of anxiety and the struggle against it comes down to something pretty simple. Not easy, maybe, but simple. We suffer not because life is hard, though certainly it can be, but because we've become strangers to ourselves. We've forgotten what we truly are beneath all our ideas about what we should be. This forgetting isn't a tragedy, though. It's more like a cosmic game of hide and seek. We hide from ourselves only to have the joy of being found again. And each time anxiety rises within you, it might just be another opportunity to remember to peel back another layer of mistaken identity and rediscover the limitless awareness that has been here all along. There's a Zen saying I really like. First there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. Before we begin this journey of self-discovery, anxiety is just anxiety, a problem to be solved, an enemy to be defeated. Then as we explore more deeply, the solid reality of anxiety begins to dissolve. We see its emptiness, its temporary nature, its dependent quality. And finally, anxiety returns. Not as a fearsome opponent, but simply as another expression of the vast, mysterious dance of existence. The mountain is still the mountain, but now we see it with different eyes. So I leave you with this. Perhaps there's nothing to fight against after all. Perhaps there never was. Perhaps there's only this moment, this breath, this limitless awareness in which all things arise and pass away like clouds in the sky. And in this recognition, you might just discover that what you've been seeking through all your struggles was never somewhere else. It was right here all along, closer than your own heartbeat, more intimate than your next thought, just this, just now, just as you are. If these words have resonated somewhere within you, perhaps they weren't really new information at all. Perhaps they were more like a reminder of something you've always known but momentarily forgotten. Like remembering where you put your keys after searching the entire house. Share this reflection if you feel moved to do so. But remember, no one else can wake up for you. No one else can live your life or know your truth. That journey is yours alone, though paradoxically it's the one thing we all share. And isn't that a wonderful joke the universe has played on us? That in our deepest aloneness we find our most profound connection. That in embracing our unique experience, we touch the universal. But now I'm just playing with words again. The real truth lies in the silence between them.